Welcome to another edition of the Routine Jumper Daily Podcast, the podcast where we talk about everything NBA basketball 5 days a week. I'm your host, Jalon Dixon, and today we've got a ton of things to get into. But before we get started, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily NBA content. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers and trying to become one of the biggest NBA podcasts here on the YouTube platform. So remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. And let's go ahead and get right into today's episode. Starting off with the man of the hour, the dude everybody is talking about coming off of last night, Austin Reaves. Austin Reaves has the internet in shambles, and for good reason. No LeBron, no Luka, no problem. Austin Reaves this season over 5 games. First game, 28 points, 16 assists. Second game, 41 points, 5 assists, 51 points, 9 assists, 25 points, 11 assists, 26 points, 9 assists. So far this season, he is second in points and first in assists this year through 5 games. I saw a really interesting tweet on X/Twitter that I think is a good baseline to work with when talking about Austin Reaves today on the pod. And it's from Jason Timpf, a well-renowned NBA analyst, who said, watching the growth of Austin Reaves from solid role player to secondary ball handler to guy who can step up into a lead role when you need him to legit all-star level lead handler in this league has been an experience. What a week it has been for him. And it's so crazy. I want to read that part one more time. This middle section that he said. Watching the growth of Austin Reaves from solid role player to secondary ball handler to guy who can step up into a lead role. And this might be a little hyperbolic, but the guy that I think of when you use that linear progression, the poster child to me for that kind of progression as a player in this league is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Austin Reaves and his development as a Los Angeles Laker over the years is so similar to what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has done since being drafted by the LA Clippers. I mean, go back to that time with the Clippers and you watch his progression through until, being traded to Oklahoma City. With the Clippers, he's a role player off the bench. He's playing behind Lou Williams and Patrick Beverley in that guard rotation. He gets moved to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now you're a part of a 3-guard rotation with Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder. Then you progress to being the man on the team after Dennis Schroeder is moved off of and Chris Paul is also going to a different situation. And then he takes the leap from being like the lead guy, but they're still not great, to the lead guy, but he's like an all-star caliber player, to the lead guy, and he's an MVP, right? And I don't know if Austin Reaves is going to be an MVP in this league, but the progression is so similar in terms of just continuing to develop his game, particularly as the tweet mentioned, an on-ball shot creator and development as a overall perimeter generator, whether that's for himself or, again, he's leading the league in assists this year. He's starting to become an even more elite playmaker. There's a graphic that I found that compares Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Austin Reaves through the first 5 games of the season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is averaging more points than him slightly by 0.6. Shai is averaging more rebounds, it's 5.6 to 6.2. But then Austin Reaves is averaging 10 assists to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 5.4. And Shai is averaging 1.4 steals. Austin Reaves is averaging 1.8. Once you get to the shooting splits, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has a little bit of a decent advantage, especially from what he's been able to do at the free throw line and in the mid-range area. But Austin Reaves has been special. Austin Reaves has put himself in a conversation where a lot of people are discussing him as like, is he the best number 3 in the NBA, right? And we've had that conversation in a bunch of different iterations beforehand, right? Like even last season, there was the conversations about Chet Holmgren and him being the third option for the Oklahoma City Thunder. And we've had this conversation in a bunch of different lights, but Austin Reaves is doing it in a way where we have to go further than just like what he can be as a third option for this Lakers team. See, a lot of people have looked at Austin Reaves as a potential trade chip to go get that next guy to put next to Luka Doncic in the post LeBron James era. And we have to start having a real conversation about whether or not Austin Reaves just already is that guy for them, right? I saw something earlier that mentioned that it was from Kevin Garnett talking about the interest of Austin Reaves to potentially, go seek out his own team. And, we talked last episode about AJ Mitchell coming off the bench for the Oklahoma City Thunder and how many teams he could be the starting point guard for if he were in a different situation. And Austin Reaves, I think, there was conversations about him this past summer about like wanting to potentially, go to the San Antonio Spurs were a conversation. And the idea was, obviously pairing him up with Victor Wembanyama, but also, further bolstering up that backcourt. This was, of course, taking into consideration you have Stephon Castle, taking into consideration you have De'Aaron Fox, now you have Dylan Harper. So I think it had a lot to do with why a lot of the idea around that died down, beyond the fact that I think Austin Reaves was smart on betting on himself in an offseason where there wasn't a ton of money to go around these last 2 years, and he put himself in position to become a free agent around a time where there's going to be a lot more money out there and a lot more teams available to throw a bag at him. Austin Reaves, whether it's with the Lakers or it's with somebody else, is going to have the chance to be a number one option somewhere with the way he's playing. And I know that this is a 5-game sample size, but this type of progression is one that is going to be valued by somebody. Again, I use the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comp as kind of the baseline for this, and it's because it only takes one team to really believe in you after they've identified you as a talent. And hopefully the Lakers are smart enough to understand that they have a homegrown talent in Austin Reaves who can be a real fit next to Luka Doncic for the future. But if they don't have the finances to keep Austin Reaves in-house, if Austin Reaves wants to be more than second fiddle to Luka Doncic, there are going to be teams that, with what they've been able to identify in terms of his progression, there's going to be teams that are smart enough to go pursue him as this secondary ball creator, either as the lead on your team or as a secondary option, but with a little bit more of a featured role. Could Austin Reaves be a really interesting fit in place of Jaden Ivey at the 2 guard position next to Cade Cunningham in Detroit? Yes, I think that would be a really interesting fit. Do I think that Austin Reaves could be the... Here's another interesting team that comes to mind. Austin Reaves as the lead point guard for the Houston Rockets next to Amen Thompson, who's a much better fit defensively next to someone like Austin, as opposed to having Luka Doncic as that secondary guy in the backcourt, and now they're both being picked on defensively. Yes, Austin is a competitive defender, but basically you're put in a position where you're forced to now put your 3 and your 4. They have to be high-level defenders to make up for the fact that Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic are, average to, in most cases, below average defenders at best. And usually those defensive first 3 and 4s end up being either, offensively deficient, or they're hyper reliant on having to be efficient as 3-point shooters because they can't do very much else from a shot creation standpoint. But if you have a high-level defender like Amen Thompson, a high-level defender like Jabari Smith, and then you have these shot generators in Austin Reaves and Kevin Durant, and then Alper Sengun at your 5, that team looks insane now with him at the starting point guard position. And you can make the argument that he's like the number 1 guy in a sense on that team. I mean, yes, Alper Sengun is special, and of course, Kevin Durant is still an elite talent. But at least from a perimeter shot creation standpoint, like everything would start with Austin in terms of bringing the ball up, generating offense at the top of the key and trying to make things happen. Is he the number one option on the team? Not necessarily, but also think about Austin's future, right? This Lakers team does not have a lot of upside long term to be a championship contender around Luka Doncic because of their lack of resources outside of having significant cap space in the year of 2027, the same summer where they have to make a decision on whether or not they can bring back Austin Reaves, right? So Austin has to look around and also kind of wonder if he can grow any further in a Lakers uniform. See, that opportunity wasn't given to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He was forced into a completely different situation, and thankfully the Oklahoma City Thunder were not only able to identify him, but they were able to really help him develop and grow further beyond just this, savvy scorer off the bench that the LA Clippers kind of viewed as this luxury item. Austin Reaves is so early in the season, but Austin Reaves has been a really special player this year. And Austin, again, he made a really big decision a year or two ago to bet on himself and take a very team-friendly deal in an offseason where there were conversations about him landing in a bunch of different spots, with the San Antonio Spurs being one of the main names. And I think that summer was pre-De'Aaron Fox. This is Stephon Castle. Stephon Castle, I don't know if he was on the team yet or not, or obviously even if Steph was on the team, he was the only, real lead guard that the San Antonio Spurs had at the time. Austin really bet on himself, and now he's going to be playing himself into a position where financially teams are going to have him on their radar, and he's going to be a lead option somewhere. If he's not the number one, he's the number two, and he's going to be the number two whether it's for the Lakers or somebody else. This dude is a special talent, and his again, it's linear progression. This idea of going from this role player to being a third option to being this guy that when Luka Doncic and LeBron James are on the bench out due to injury, you can still run offense through him. You can still have him almost be this heliocentric option. And you kind of, in a sense, have to, because who else is really generating offense for this Lakers team with those two guys out? Rui Hachimura has been really solid offensively for this team. Marcus Smart's been okay. Jared Vanderbilt's been okay. Shout out to DeAndre Ayton. I was hating on him earlier on in the season, the first 2 or 3 games in, but if you really look at the sample size overall, he's been consistent. I don't necessarily trust him as a rim protector once we start talking about going into the postseason, but he's been a guy that you have to give him his flowers, at least in terms of what he's been able to do as a rebounder and being active on the glass. But in terms of really being able to generate consistent offense, I mean, it is the Austin Reaves show, and he is doing his due diligence and then some, and he's been absolutely amazing. That's kind of underselling just how big Austin Reaves has been so far this season. You guys let me know in the comment section down below. I don't know how consistent this will be throughout the season, of course, with Luka and LeBron coming back. But, is Austin Reaves an MVP, talent right now? Is Austin Reaves in your top MVP ballot 5 games into the season? Or a separate question that might have a little bit more merit. How much do you think Austin Reaves is worth per year on the open market? Obviously, about 20 to 25 million is on the low end. That's pushing herself around about Josh Giddey money for what he was able to get from the Chicago Bulls. And I think Austin Reaves is more valuable than that. You start getting into that 30+ million range. You're talking about somebody similar to De'Aaron Fox, who's looking for a contract this upcoming summer. Is Austin Reaves a more valuable player on the open market financially than someone like De'Aaron Fox? I think there's a real conversation there. You guys let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. I think there's a real convo there. And I think a lot of people might right now, with De'Aaron on the shelf and everything going on in San Antonio where those two guards are hooping their minds off, you could really make a strong argument that Austin Reaves just is a even more valuable asset than someone like De'Aaron Fox, who has been much closer to being a potential all-star than Austin Reaves has ever been in his career. And Austin, he might not be an MVP candidate by the end of the year, but he dang sure is going to be a guy that, with the way he's playing, is going to deserve some kind of all-star consideration, but only time will tell. Next up, we got Nikola Jokić and the Denver Nuggets. And, bro, these dudes have been quietly cooking on a night-to-night basis. So, the Denver Nuggets lost their very first game of the season against the Golden State Warriors. And since then, are undefeated and are a plus 69 in terms of their point differential. First off, nice. Second off, they're not just winning, they are literally blowing folks out the water. So they come off of an OT loss to a team in Golden State that looks like they're going to be in the championship mix, and a lot of power rankings through the first 5 games have them as a top 8 team in the NBA right now. And the Denver Nuggets went into overtime against that team and then proceed to spend the next 3 games completely whooping on folks. And in the process of that, Nikola Jokić just sleepwalking his way into a triple-double where he's had a triple-double in all 4 games, tied for the most consecutive triple-doubles to start a season along with Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is the first. This stat that I found is insane. It says the Nuggets are the first team in NBA history to score 120 points and shoot 50% or better from the field in each of their first 4 games of a season. This team is literally punching folks in the mouth. Literally making teams look silly. Again, after that game against Golden State, it has been smooth sailing for the Denver Nuggets for what they've been able to do. And mind you, this is a Denver Nuggets team that is still trying to find their footing in a real way because they really haven't seen the best of Cam Johnson yet. Like, we have not seen the Cam Johnson game coming out party. He had a little bit of a decent performance against the Phoenix Suns, but other than that, he has not had that productive 3-point shooting night where he looks like that knockdown marksman that they brought him in to be. So this team is still trying to figure themselves out with him in the mix now. Thankfully, Tim Hardaway Jr. is shooting 40+% from beyond the arc right now, building off of what he was able to do last season, and that's been able to make up some of the slack. Also, Jonas Valanciunas is a godsend for this Denver Nuggets team. I can't talk about the Denver Nuggets without talking about how special Jonas Valanciunas has been, especially when you think about how insane it is that he was basically he was a 1-for-1 trade swap from New Orleans for Dario Saric, who was injured and unproductive last season for the Denver Nuggets. Here he is, Jonas Valanciunas comes on the floor off the bench, 14 minutes off the bench, 10 points, 6 rebounds, 5 of 7 from the field, a plus 14. Plus 14, best plus minus of anybody off the bench outside of Peyton Watson, who was absolutely stellar despite the fact that the numbers don't jump out at you. What he's able to do defensively is so special, and that's what helps them too, as being this rangy athletic wing that can help put pressure on the rim, scares defenses with his ability to slash and gain so much attention as a dude who brings, real force around the rim. But Jonas Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench have been able to provide such a spark for this team, and that's something they were missing so much last year. The biggest thing that this Denver Nuggets team has missed for years even has been productivity at the backup center position. This team completely falls off a cliff when Nikola Jokić gets off the floor, and it has a lot to do with the lack of real productivity at that center position. I mean, we've seen a lot of different iterations of what they've tried. Obviously, they were missing Day'Ron Holmes last year, their rookie who they drafted out of, I believe it was Gonzaga, and he didn't play at all last year. Zeke Naji is on this roster simply to eventually get traded for something to help this team become a little bit more flexible financially. He has a very lucrative deal that's just kind of there to be this big contract that can help aggregate with something else to hopefully, get a valuable asset down the line, or at least get a decent asset down the line. And they had DeAndre Jordan at one point, who was absolutely terrible for them as far as I'm concerned. So the Denver Nuggets have always had this issue at backup center, and Jonas Valanciunas, he's not putting up these insane counting stats that are gonna make you think like, oh, he's a sixth man of the year or something crazy like that. He's averaging 8.5 with 5 rebounds, shooting 56% from the field, and he's shooting 58% true shooting. He's doing his job. It's just to simply come on the floor and be a extension of what Jokic is as a passer, be an extension of what Jokic is as a big burly body around the paint that you have to respect as a play finisher, and somebody that just you can play competent offense through. You're not running plays for Jonas Valanciunas, but you can get him a couple of post touches to help slow the offense down, help get things settled, and allow yourself to still be efficient on the offensive end and not be giving up these leads that constantly happened last year for the Denver Nuggets. It felt like game after game after game, the Nuggets would almost have to completely burrow folks in the first half to build some kind of real cushion for themselves because when Jokic would sit at the top of the third or the midway portion of the third quarter, it seemed like their entire lead would get burnt away because they just didn't know how to operate. You know, there's always those stats that would drop about Jamal Murray's inefficiencies without Jokic on the floor, and in a sense, Jamal Murray's productivity being a microcosm or being a product, I guess is a better word, of Jokic just being so dang good. And I think there is some validity to that. But I think the biggest thing too is when Jokic isn't on the floor, there hasn't been a competent center to still play that 1-5 pick and roll action with, which is one of the most dangerous 1-2 punches in the league. With Jamal Murray and Jokic, they've been special at being that 1 and 2 punch offensively for years now. And when you take Jokic off the floor, there's nobody, of course, there's nobody in the league that's competent in comparison to Jokic as an offensive talent. But the drop off from Jokic to all the other centers that this Denver Nuggets team has trotted out in years past is so significantly off a cliff that anybody would look bad in a 1-5 pick and roll action with the guys that Jamal Murray has been having to deal with over the last couple of years. Now, again, there's a drop off from Jokic to Jonas, but the gap is at least not as wide as the gap is between Jokic and Dario Saric or Jokic and DeAndre Jordan, right? So that's been huge for them. That's been a huge part of what they've been able to do. This team looks like they have so much more depth with bringing in bringing Bruce Brown back. Obviously, having Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas, Julian Strawther, and Jalen Pickett look solid as well. And they continue to develop at those wing spots. Peyton Watson has been someone they can rely on to be that first wing off the bench as a big-time defender. And I think he's been a contributor as more of a defensive specialist for this team, you know, given the fact that they take a little bit of a hit having Cam Johnson start over him, somebody who has more of an upside offensively than what he does on the defensive end. So this team looks deeper than this. The best way to put it, right, is with Jokic at the helm, already with 4 straight triple-doubles to start the year off, this team is 3-1, and they look deeper than they've ever been. They're as talented in that starting 5 as they've been in years past. They have the best backup center they've ever had in the Nikola Jokic era. And that formula together honestly spells a team that could have the best chance, on paper at least, to knock off the Oklahoma City Thunder as the reigning defending champions. I think that this Denver Nuggets team has the chance to get back to the NBA Finals again. This team, this version of the Denver Nuggets is more talented than that, and I believe they're deeper as well than that Denver Nuggets team that got to the championship and got the job done a few years ago. This team is better. They're more efficient. They are blowing folks out. They haven't even seen the best version of Cam Johnson yet. And when that part clicks, I mean, they're already, again, their point differential already has them at a plus 69. They're going to literally be demolishing teams where they're going to sit Jokić at the bottom of the third quarter because they're going to be killing folks by 20 and 30 points on a night-to-night basis once Cam Johnson starts to find his three-point stroke. I mean, we've already seen a 50 ball from Aaron Gordon this year. This team is lethal. If I had to rank the best potential teams to knock the Oklahoma City Thunder off as reigning champions, I mean, right now, given the growing pains and the injury issues in the backcourt for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the New York Knicks look solid, but I don't know who in that front court is going to be able to contain Nikola Jokić. And then beyond that, I mean, the list gets really tricky after that. This Denver Nuggets team, to me, is by far the best possible team to knock the Oklahoma City Thunder off right now. Now, again, 5-game sample size, but again, they haven't even got the best version of Cam Johnson yet. They're still working through the fact that they're building out this depth with all the guys they brought back this summer and some of the guys that they added this past offseason. This team feels like there's still another gear they can hit, and that feels terrifying to say out loud when you already are looking at them killing folks on a night-to-night basis, blowing everybody out by 20 plus. I mean, they just won this game against the New Orleans Pelicans by almost 40. Yes, almost 40 points. This is ridiculous. Shout out to Nikola Jokić. Shout out to this Denver Nuggets team. People aren't talking about them in the national media right now because the Lakers are hooping. VJ Edgecombe and those boys over in Philly are doing their thing. Giannis is the talk of the town with the trade conversations between him and the New York Knicks paired with the fact that Milwaukee Bucks are 3-1 right now. There's a lot of storylines that are taking over above the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets are quietly cooking teams. And before you know, you're going to look up. They're going to be a top 2, top 3 seed in the Western Conference. And we're gonna have to remind ourselves this is a team that won a championship just a couple years ago, and their roster's better than it was back then. So watch out. Watch out. This Denver Nuggets team is not going to go out quietly. The start to this season, I think, is only the beginning of what they got cooking up this year. Next up, we got to talk about doubles. You heard me. We got to talk about doubles. Come on, man. This team was down by 12 points in the third quarter against the Sacramento Kings, Bulls West. And they came back and fought. Josh Giddey, near triple-double, 20 points, 12 rebounds. 12 assists, 8 rebounds. Nikola Vucevic, 13 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. My boy Matas Buzelis, 27 points, 5 rebounds, 11 of 18 from the field, 3 of 4 from beyond the arc, 2 steals, 1 block, a plus 18 on the floor. Guess what? Matas this season already has 2 20 balls on the year. He has bounced back from that game against the I believe it was the Orlando Magic, right? Yep. Against the Orlando Magic, where he fouled out in 12 minutes. He's bounced back and had 2 really solid, really strong performances on the offensive end. He's guarding well. This team is 4-0 and sitting at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. They are one of only 2 teams in the Eastern Conference that are undefeated still. Them and the Philadelphia 76ers. They are one of only 4 teams that are still undefeated if you add in the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. I found out that this right now is the 5th time in Bulls history. Yep, you heard it right. This is the first time in Chicago Bulls history that they have started the season out 4-0. Only the 5th time in Chicago Bulls history. Mind you, this team, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole because it's not going to do anything but get people mad. This team won 6 championships with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. This team won 6 championships, yet 5 times in Bulls history, this team had the youngest MVP in NBA history. My favorite player of all time, Derrick Rose, for 3 seasons. Peak of his power version of Derrick Rose for 3 seasons. This Chicago Bulls team has only been 4-0 4 other times before this year. Did I mention that they still have not had Kobe White on the floor just yet this season? I said it last time we talked about the Chicago Bulls. I'm going to say it again. Shout out to the Bulls. I'm sorry, earphone users. Headphone users, earphone users, I apologize. But I don't think y'all understand. The Chicago Bulls, peep these stats real quick. The Chicago Bulls are top 5 in assists per game, top 5 in points allowed per game. They are top 10 in rebounding. They are top 5 in 3-point percentage allowed. This team is a top 5 defense and one of the best ball moving squads in the NBA. Did I mention the fact that this Chicago Bulls team is top 10 in pace? This Chicago Bulls team is top 10 in field goal percentage. This Chicago Bulls team is top 10 in rebounds per game. This Chicago Bulls team right now is the 4th best defense according to defensive rating this season. Are you serious? And in terms of offensive rating for y'all who want to point it out, they're 11th, just outside the top 10. So they're a borderline top 10 offense and a top 5 defense in the NBA right now. Playing at a top 10 pace, and they're doing it without Kobe White, who would actually add to their pace. Kobe White would actually add to their pace of play. Kobe White would actually add to their 3-point shooting acumen. Look, man, I said it before the season started. I said I don't have crazy high expectations for the Chicago Bulls team this year. I just want to see who our mainstays are. And I want to see Matas Buzelis take a step forward in year 2. Matas is hooping. And as far as the mainstays right now, Josh Giddey, I appreciate what you're doing. I mess with Josh Giddey right now. Isaac Okoro, TBD, but he's been productive. I like him. Ayo Dosunmu, he's a must to me. Matas Buzelis, he's a must to me. Kobe White, I don't care if he's injured. He's a must to me. Jalon Smith off the bench has been very productive. Let me read the Jalon Smith stats out for y'all. I know it's not going to sound like nothing crazy. It's not going to be this crazy productivity. 7 points per game, 4 rebounds. I know he's shooting 40% from the field. True shooting is 45%, but he's just been effective as a rim defender. I know the stats don't jump off the page. I know they don't. That's not important. He's been present defensively. I think Jalon Smith has been solid defensively this year. Nikola Vucevic, I don't think he's a mainstay long term, but boy is he playing his trade value up. Because whether he gets moved or he walks in this offseason, he's played himself into somebody giving him an extension. Somebody's going to give him at least a 2 to 3 year deal this upcoming summer. I don't know if it's the Bulls. I don't know if it's somebody else. But somebody is going to throw some money at Nikola Vucevic if he's going to continue to do this. This was an off night for him as far as this season is concerned. He had a double-double and nearly had a triple-double with 7 assists. And for context, he was a plus 16 on the floor in this game. Mind you, he also didn't have a single turnover. For overall context, insane work. This man has a above 20% usage, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, it's near 20%, excuse me, at 19.4. And he had 0 turnovers in this win over the Sacramento Kings. The Chicago Bulls, man, they are rolling. Now, I got to get all of my Chicago Bulls glazing out now because with the next 2 games, we play a back-to-back against the New York Knicks. 2 games, 2 days separated. We played New York Knicks on Friday. We played New York Knicks again on Sunday. So, the likelihood, the goal for the Chicago Bulls in this situation, obviously, is to win both. But the goal is to split this. You play the Bull. I think you play the Knicks at home first. Yes, play the Knicks home at first on Halloween, and then you go to Madison Square Garden on Sunday. If the Bulls can split this little mini in-game season series they got going with the New York Knicks, this back-to-back they got going, progress, man. 5-1, 6-0 coming out of the week. That's the goal. I don't know what the heck I want for this team anymore. I'm gonna be so honest for you. I want a high draft pick. I really do. This is a great draft class for it. Darren Peterson, Cam Boozer, Nate Ahmed. You know what I mean? It's a really solid class. But I just like what we're doing philosophically as a basketball team right now in terms of what this team is doing offensively, what this team is doing defensively. And Billy Donovan got these boys playing hard. He got them playing hard every night. And that, at the end of the day, I think all Chicago Bulls fans can say the same thing. That's all we've ever wanted. This team has always been just good enough to make you question them. This is the first time we've seen the Chicago Bulls look like a team, look like a competent basketball team that just like you feel like they kind of have an understanding of what their identity is. For the last 2 or 3 years, it's been all about just trying to figure out who the guys are. And it's made it so difficult to figure out what the ideal play style is for this team, or what players are the ones that you can lean on in crunch time. It's been too difficult to figure that out because there's been so many interchanging pieces and so many questions around what the goals for this Chicago Bulls team should be. And I think there's still big questions about that. I think this 4-0 start can upset the apple cart so much because it can put them in a position where again they can believe they're so much better than they may actually be. I said that I thought this Chicago Bulls team had a chance to finish as a top 8 team in the Eastern Conference this year. Not that I wanted it, but they have the talent, especially with the fact that, the bottom of the Eastern Conference is definitely a question mark. Right now, they're at the top. Long way to go, man. Long way to go. And like I said, I have to enjoy this while I can because I know that this first loss is coming sometime soon. Because first of all, that's just the nature of the NBA. But again, their next scheduled stretch, just to put it into perspective, they play the Knicks on Friday, the Knicks again on Sunday, and then they play the 76ers. So that's going to be a battle between two teams that are currently undefeated, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Both of those games are back-to-backs, and they're both on the road. Then you play the San Antonio Spurs. Your next 5 to 6 games are no slouch by any means. So getting off to this 4-0 start gives a little bit of breathing room because these next 6 games are going to be a lot. And that doesn't even mention the fact that the Pistons are after that. Utah is a little bit of an interesting ploy, but then you got and on that 4-game, you got a 4-game road trip of Pistons, Jazz, Nuggets, Blazers. Like they've got a lot. Like what's it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 road games in their next 10 games, and a lot of them are against high-level competition. High-level competition. So, shout out to the Bulls for starting 4-0. Again, first time in a long time, 5th time in franchise history. like I said, I gotta enjoy it while it's here because this next 10 game stretch is gonna really test this Chicago Bulls team. And I'm not saying that they're gonna fall off a cliff, but because they've played some good basketball teams, but this 10 game stretch right here is gonna be a real test for this team. I know they can't be undefeated forever. This 4-0 start is a good feather in their cap to kick off the season. Last but not least, we got to talk about the two biggest injuries that occurred on the same night yesterday, and it could mean a lot for these two teams this upcoming season, depending on what the circumstances are. Trae Young went down with an injury that looked pretty bad, and thankfully it looks like he avoided any kind of real ACL slash MCL injury. Definitely was an injury to the back of his knee. He is going to get an MRI, I think likely today as of when this recording goes live. So it'll be interesting to see what's said about him coming out of that MRI. He's going to miss at least a 2 to 3 week stretch. I think because the Atlanta Hawks are going to also want to play it careful with them. That puts them in an interesting spot. The Atlanta Hawks get to learn a lot about themselves this season. You know, we were talking about a couple episodes ago. We were talking a couple episodes back about this being a crucial year for Trae Young, given the fact that he's already in a bit of a contract dispute with the Atlanta Hawks, who refused to give him a contract extension coming into the year, and so he's in a real prove-it season, and this could be something that really derails him if he misses significant time. Now, I don't think 2 to 3 weeks is going to be the biggest difference in whether or not he gets a max extension at the end of the year, but the severity of this injury and how much it lingers in terms of affecting his play throughout the year, that's all going to matter when he has to come to this table and figure out if he's going to be an Atlanta Hawk moving forward. This injury is not just about, the Atlanta Hawks, trying to regain momentum within their season, because, I mean, this Atlanta Hawks team, they were able to get the dub. They were able to get the dub still, even in his absence, thanks to Jalon Johnson and what he's able to do. And they got a lot more minutes from Nikola Alexander-Walker in this one. Luke Kennard played a ton, and they've got the guard depth now, right? Because of bringing in Nikola Alexander-Walker, you have Dyson Daniels, you have Luke Kennard, so you have those guys that can make up that guard position. And I think it's a two-way street, right? This is a situation where Atlanta, they see themselves in a position now where they can learn what they have in a quote-unquote post-Trae Young roster. They can see in a certain sample size, even if it's only a week or two, maybe even 3, they can get a sample size of like, okay, how good is this team if Trae Young isn't the starting point guard and it's Nikola Alexander-Walker next to Dyson Daniels, and you've got this defensive-oriented backcourt along with Jalon Johnson, Zachary Risachet, and Kristaps Porzingis with Luke Kennard and Onyeka Okongwu first off the bench, right? What does that look like? Because if that team's still productive offensively and they improve as a defensive team because they've got more positive defensive personnel on the court with those two guys in Nikola Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels sharing the floor, I mean, that puts them in a position where when they come to the negotiation table, they can say, look, we've hit our head on the ceiling with you more times than not when it came to being a team that either missed the postseason or barely got past the first round. Sure, you had that flash in the pan year where you made the Eastern Conference Finals. So did the Portland Trailblazers when they had that flash in the pan year where they made the Western Conference Finals, led by Damian Lillard. But the Portland Trailblazers haven't been anywhere near that since. And they're in a productive rebuild right now. Maybe the Atlanta Hawks can be in a similar situation. The Portland Trailblazers moved off of Damian Lillard, and although he ended up returning like a boomerang, Damian Lillard's in a completely different stage of his career, and financially, the Portland Trailblazers needed to be able to move off of Dame in order to create some kind of flexibility to really start their rebuild and also create, more cap space to preserve their rebuild. Trae Young is so much more um, in his prime that giving him a max contract extension, he could be a 40, $45 million a year player. And you're talking about paying for a guy who, yes, is a walking 20 and 10 in terms of 20 points, 20 plus points and 10 assists, but he's a net negative defender and he's a small guard. And we know that in today's NBA, you know, outside of Steph Curry, we haven't seen too many teams be led by a small guard and win a championship. And so investing 40, $45 million a year into that player when your ceiling was one Eastern Conference Finals appearance, I think Trae Young is deserving of a big time contract. But you wonder if it's going to be in Atlanta. And I don't want this injury to make it seem like that has all the weight in the world on it. But how they perform in Trae Young's absence is going to be something that can be brought to the negotiation table if the results are positive. So that's just something to keep an eye on. And then Anthony Davis. Oh, man, Anthony Davis. Injured again. It's every year, man. Grabbing his knee. Goes out with lower leg soreness. And apparently he had the ability to come back in this game, but it seemed like team doctors withheld him from returning to the game. It will be a big hit to this Dallas Mavericks team, who's already trying to figure themselves out, by the way, if they lose Anthony Davis, given the fact that they're also dealing with injury issues to Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. That would be your entire front court just wiped off the face of the earth for the next week or two if you're missing Anthony Davis. And after that, I mean, they don't really have any depth. I mean, you'd have to start PJ Washington probably at the 5. You'd have to play much more small ball where maybe you start D'Angelo Russell, Christie, you move Cooper Flag to his natural position at the 3, and then you have Klay Thompson and PJ Washington, or maybe you have Max Christie, Cooper Flag, Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, Dwight Powell. I mean, this team, for a team that's already struggled to start out the gate this season, if they miss Anthony Davis for any kind of real stretch of time, not just like again, he had the chance to potentially come back in this game. So there's a likelihood that he might come back next game and be totally fine. But if this causes any issues where Anthony Davis misses significant time, you pair that with Kyrie Irving already being lost for majority, if not the entirety of the year. You pair that with the fact that Dante Exum is dealing with a knee injury himself. Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are both dealing with lower extremity injuries as well. Like, this team has really no margin for error, and losing Anthony Davis again for any stretch of time is going to hurt them so much because they don't really have the personnel to make up for losing someone like Davis in the lineup right now. And I think even if you get Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford back healthy, like, Davis just provides a completely different spark for you, especially because outside of maybe Cooper Flag, there's no real consistent offensive output on this team. And Cooper Flag's still trying to figure himself out offensively as well, given the fact that he's still trying to learn how to play this jumbo point guard position. So, yeah, the Dallas Mavericks are in a really weird spot right now. And the hope is that Anthony Davis doesn't miss any time, or he only misses maybe a game or two just to injury management. But really, really tough situations for both the Dallas Mavericks and the Atlanta Hawks, because these are two teams that have both struggled to start the season out and really didn't need anything extra to pour gasoline in terms of pouring gasoline on the flame. And yet here we are with two major injuries to two all-star caliber guys, where if they miss any kind of real time, this rough start to the season could avalanche into something even worse. I mean, like that. You guys let me know in the comment section down below which team if, let's say, both players had to miss 2 to 3 weeks, which team do you think would be at the biggest disadvantage if these two guys miss significant time? And let's say the Dallas Mavericks at least get Derek Lively back, or they get Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford back, but they're without Anthony Davis for 2 to 3 weeks, right? And then, the Atlanta Hawks have their roster as is as well, because I don't think anybody of real note is out due to injury right now. So let's just say that the roster around these two guys is fully intact, but they both missed 2 to 3 weeks due to these injuries. Who do you think has a roster that's more well off to sustain this absence? The Atlanta Hawks without Trae Young, or the Dallas Mavericks without Anthony Davis? I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. But with that all being said, this has been another edition of the Routine Jumper podcast. Thank you again for watching and listening. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe for daily NBA content. Remember to hit that post notification bell so you always know when we're dropping new videos. And I will see you guys again tomorrow. But until then, peace.